bespoke radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Welcome, Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses. Yeah, man, how you doing? How you doing? As you can see, I barely made it to the seat. Today is Tuesday, September 22nd, 2020. 266 days into the new year, only 98 days left. We are live from a bunker somewhere in the middle of beautiful downtown Burbank, California. And I would like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States, hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. This is Fade to Black for KJCR, the Game Changer Network, and KGRA, the planet. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking, everybody? How you doing? How you doing? All right, the moment has arrived. We made it. Tonight is show number 1300. Holy crap. All right, we made it. Show number 1300. And tonight, very special guest on this very special evening, Seth Breedlove. Can you believe it? Seth Breedlove joins us. He is going to announce his new film, The Mothman Legacy. Tonight, we're going to talk all about, well, obviously, we're going to talk about Mothman. We're going to talk about Seth, but other things, too, as well. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. I've been a big fan of Seth's for many years. Very, very talented researcher and filmmaker. And then, tomorrow night, right here on this very program, Greg Housh. Greg Housh. I mean, does it get any bigger than that? Right? What a week on the show. Man, so here we go. Tomorrow night, Seth. Tonight, Seth. Tomorrow night, Greg Housh. And Greg is going to be here to talk all things singularity. Okay? Artificial intelligence. He is one of the brightest out there on this subject, period, on this planet. Greg Housh is here. Really looking forward to that conversation. Thursday night is another Fader night with open lines all night long. And I know that you want to call in on Thursday. You're probably itching to call in tonight. I know you is. What was the name of that Frank Zappa record? You Are What You Is. That was a great record. Or was that just a song? Wait a minute. Was that? No, You Are What You Is. That was a Frank Zappa record, right? See, this is when I turn it over to the Fadernauts because my mind, my 56, soon-to-be 57-year-old brain can't remember every single Frank Zappa album ever made. But I remember the song. I'll turn it over to the Fadernauts. You guys let me know. All right, so there you go. Got lots to talk about tonight. It's such a special evening. And we didn't get here to show number 1300 without all of you. Okay, we have the best audience in all of talk radio. That's it. There isn't a better audience and a better family than what we have right here. It is amazing. I want to thank you for all of that. Rita and I sit back every single day and giggle and laugh and think about you guys. It's just so special. Okay, it is a family. So thank you for all of the support. Thank you for being here each night. And for you, and don't think I don't recognize, because I do, for you to take 3 hours out of your valuable time and spend it here with us each night, that means the world. That's it. And we know this. So thank you. Okay? All right, we got to 1300. Here's the bad news. Here's the bad news. Show number 2000 is 5 years away. That's going to be a pretty good party. That's the one where I'm drinking on the air. That's the night I open up the Skull vodka. Right? That's the night. Oh man, over at the house, I have two in the Skull vodka gift boxes with the Skull shot glasses. I've got that at the house, and I've been thinking about the right moment to break that out. Oh, man. Do I have to wait 5 years? Yeah. But show 2000, I'll drink with all of you on the air. Okay, so what was it? You Are What You Is. Was it an album? You Are What You Is. So is that the single? Thank you for posting that. Mark, I get it. Is that the album? Was it an album or a song? Is this the single? Is that the 45 with the big hole in the middle of it? You Are What You Is by Frank Zappa. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Start right there. It was a busy day on Twitter, wasn't it? Busy day on social media. But there you go. You can follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. The Sandbox is hashtag F2B on Twitter. Come and hang out with us there. If you've never visited hashtag F2B, you've heard about the Sandbox. If you want to dip your toe in that action, hashtag F2B pops it up right there. All right, there's Dennis. Thank you, Dennis. We got to 1300 because of your help as well. Thank you so much, Dennis. Big timing it as one of the show producers. Thank you so much, Dennis. And I mean, tirelessly getting things done every single night. Okay, enough of that. I'm not drinking on the air. Let's move on. Hashtag F2BQ is Fade to Black questions. Any questions? No comments. Don't do what Mark Tarana does. Don't think that because Tarana gets away with it, that you can get away with it too. Fade to Black questions is hashtag F2BQ. You can also email Jimmy at jimmychurchradio.com. Let's get to the breaking news. All right. Wow. Big day today. NASA and the United States Space Force are banding together for the future of human spaceflight. Oh, man. Red flags? As the agency moves forward with its Artemis program, which aims to return humans to the lunar surface by 2024, we'll see if that happens. Hope it does. NASA is also working on its relationship with the newly minted Space Force, which was formed back in December of 2019. You know, with the Star Trek logo, right? They stole it from Star Trek. NASA and the Space Force have penned a memorandum of understanding, what they call an MOU, a memorandum of understanding, to, and I'm quoting, to affirm a strong interest in continuing their longstanding partnership for mutually beneficial collaborative activities and furtherance of space exploration, scientific discovery, and security, end quote. While NASA doesn't officially dabble in military power and defense, and I just said officially in air quotes, the agency, especially now with this collaboration, is now it's part of the system. It's part of being the man. It's supposed to be a civilian space agency, but not now. Oh no, they're a national power. They are now the same equivalent, like the power of diplomatic or informational, military, and even economic. It all comes into play. I thought there was a separation there. Not any longer. All right, it was announced today, Edward Snowden back in the news. Edward Snowden, as we all know, the former CIA contractor who leaked intelligence secrets in 2013, has agreed to forfeit more than 5 million ducks that are quacking in his pond that he earned from his book and speaking fees to the United States government, and all of this according to court records. Snowden published his book, Permanent Record, last year without government approval, in violation of contracts he signed with the CIA and the National Security Agency. A federal judge has sided with the Justice Department in its lawsuit to claw back Snowden's proceeds and was considering how much he would need to pay. The agreement that Snowden's legal team has reached may not be the end of the dispute, however. The judge has not yet approved the forfeiture plan, and Snowden, in the agreement, said he still wants the ability to appeal the judge's earlier decision against him. Wow, $5 million. In alignment of astronomy and mathematics, now check this out. Check this out. You probably missed this in the news today. But we have astronomy and we have mathematics. And now scientists at MIT have discovered a pie Earth. Not apple pie, not peach pie, not blueberry, not coconut cream, not chocolate cream. P-I. Pie. A pie Earth, which is an Earth-sized planet that orbits around its star every, get this, 3.14 days. Now, they stopped right there. They didn't say 3.1415, blah, blah, blah. They didn't go that far. Could be. But right now, they're sticking with 3.14. The researchers discovered signals of the planet and data taken back in 2017 by the NASA Kepler Space Telescope's K2 mission. By zeroing in on the system earlier this year with, are you ready for this? It's called Speculus. And just so you know how to spell it, that's capital S, capital P, capital E, capital C, capital U, capital L, capital O, capital O, S. Speculus, a network of ground-based telescopes. The team confirmed that the signals were of a planet orbiting its star. That's right, every 3.14 days. There you go. That's all the breaking news I got for you today. Let's get this show cracking. Happy birthday to today, Andrea Bocelli. Today, 62. I remember, this is going back a couple of decades, a little longer, 25 years, 30 years. But it was cool to say, hey, check out the new Bocelli. I'm into Bocelli. You got the new Bocelli? I got it. You got it? Today, he's 62. Incredible. Scott Baio today is 60. We were watching, binging on the 5 seasons of Arrested Development. I think it was season 4. Scott Baio shows up as a lawyer named, what was it? Babala? I forget. Scott Baio today is 60. White Snake frontman, the one and only David Coverdale, today is 71. Debbie Boone, You Light Up My Life, today is 64. Joan Jett, today is 62. And Bullet Boys frontman Mark Torian. Man, I used to love the Bullet Boys. Still a great band. Mark Torian, today is 56 years old. On this day in history, 1953, the first 4-level freeway interchange in the world opens right here in Los Angeles. That's right. At the intersection of the Harbor, Hollywood, Pasadena, and Santa Ana freeways. Harbor's the 110. Hollywood's the 101. Pasadena freeway back then was the extension off of the 110. Harbor's 110 going south out of L.A. Coming out of Pasadena, it's still the 110. And the Santa Ana freeways, which is the 5 freeway. But they were all stacked up 4 levels high. First time ever in the world in 1953. Fate or fact? Still trips me out to drive on that thing, too. Crazy. Fate or fact? I'm a foodie. I'm a foodie. Rita's a foodie. And we have always, over the years, we have made sure that in our kitchen, we have a little bottle of saffron. We use it in our rice and things. We cook with it. Always a little bottle. It's expensive, right? And, it's a little bit of saffron in it, a little bottle, right? Well, check this out. It takes approximately 75,000 flowers, which all need to be plucked by hand, to produce 1 pound of saffron. 75,000 flowers. 1 pound of saffron can cost $1,100. 1,100 ducks quacking in the pond. Yep. Happy birthday, Chachi. I knew that was coming from Karen. I knew it. I knew. Yeah. Bob, blah, blah. Bob, blah, blah, blah. Bob, blah. Right? What? How do you say it? It's a funny part, too. Great name. Thank you for that, Corey. All right. Where am I at? Tonight, very special guest. Seth Breedlove joins us, Small Town Monsters. He is here with us tonight, and he is going to announce his new film and its release. It's called The Mothman Legacy. I have seen it. It's incredible. We will be talking about that tonight. Tomorrow night, Greg Hausch is right here for a full evening of singularity and artificial intelligence. Thursday night, of course, is another Fader night with open lines all night long. Now it's time for me to hit this. Look at that meow. David Coverdale. I just watched, and I didn't know it was David Coverdale's birthday until today, but last week, I know I was driving Rita crazy, but I cranked it too. I watched Whitesnake live at Donington. I believe that's where it was. Like 500,000 people. Crazy show. Steve Vai, 1990. Steve Vai, Rudy Sarzo, Adrian Vandenberg, Tommy Aldridge. I don't know who was on keyboards, but they always have him behind a curtain off the side of the stage. And David Coverdale. Incredible concert. Man, those guys had a vibe. That was good. That was good stuff. All right, let me hit this River Moon Coffee. Got to do it. rivermooncoffee.com. That's right. Breaking every single radio tradition. Drinking liquids in a live mic. All right. Tonight is show number 1300. And I remember a few times over the years giving advice to other show hosts and to podcasters that were starting out. And I know, and Rita knows what it takes to do a show. Just one. Okay? You start counting these numbers. Right now, tonight, we're at 1,300. Look, when we got to 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, getting to something like 1,000, it's years away. We've been doing this show now for 7, going on 8 years. It took us that long to get to 1,300. So to get to 2,000, which seems to me from where I'm sitting, that is 5 years away. That's a long ways off. But I have learned a few things. One of them is, and I'm going to say this as kindly as I can to all of you show hosts out there and all of you podcasters and that want to aspire and go and get yourself a microphone and start doing this kind of thing. Your best show is your next one. That's it. You learn. You will never master this. There are no masters of radio. They don't exist. To get to, that magical number, right? 10,000 hours of practice and things. That's a lot of hours. That is a lot of years. So you log in 20, 25 years, 30 years at this gig, you're just scraping the bottom of what a master is. You're never going to do it. 1,300 shows. I can only tell you that I know that tonight will be our best show. It's better than the show the night before. Tomorrow it will be even better, and you just continue that way. That's it. Don't get to show number 10 and say to yourself, I got this, because you don't. That's the first thing that I've learned. The second thing is that, especially with this show, and this goes out to everybody out there, again, that would like to do this, and I encourage that you do. But you have to be yourself. You see, the guy that's on this show, the guy that's speaking into this microphone, the guy that comes in here night after is me. That's it. You come over to the house, we meet somewhere for dinner or drinks, or we get a chance to hang out. It's the same guy. It's the same guy. It's the same conversation. I'm going to be this loud and this overly self-assertive and this self-centered in person. It's who I am. So you have to learn that. You don't want to be somebody else, and everybody tries to. No, don't do that. Don't be a guitar player like I used to be when I played guitar. I always wanted to be Eddie Van Halen. I ended up sounding like the guy. I messed up. Never found myself. I didn't find myself till years later, and that was the mistake I made when I was 20, 21, 22. Lost sight of it. Didn't have anybody giving me advice. So that's the second thing that I've learned. The other thing that I've learned, and the more that I know today about the internet and social media and what is going on out there with control, the one thing that I have realized that I have been blessed with is that this show, think about this, pulls me off the internet, pulls me out of social media for 3 hours a night. For 3 hours, I'm actually having just a conversation with somebody. When was the last time you did that, where you sat down and had a conversation with somebody for 3 hours? Because you come away from that going, wow, that was great. Wow, and you feel, well, I do it every night. I have changed. And some of the issues that I see, a lot of the issues that I see in social media is because of the engagement that is happening 24 hours a day with so many people constantly fighting the man and the control that the internet does to your brain. I don't have that, right? So I am able to have this tunnel vision and look from the outside in going, hey, we got issues here. And that's something else that I know, I can feel that the last 1,300 shows have given me. And I am able to do that night after night. Night after night. The other thing, and this is point number 4, the other thing that I have learned is all I want to do is have a conversation. But I want to have a different conversation each night. I want to have somebody come in and inspire me, to cause my chemistry on my frontal lobes to stir. And I want to be able to think. And I want to be able to engage in the conversation. What I've learned is that is difficult. And Rita and I, we sit down and we discuss the shows, moving out, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks in advance, and what we're going to do and how we're going to mix it up and how we're going to do this and who is going to be interesting and how to keep this moving forward. We have been able to do that and not break the tradition of not phoning it in. we try to make sure that every show is the best that it can be. It's engaging, and that you're going to learn along with the rest of us. And we want to make it. That is something that we have been dedicated to from day one. And that combined with, and the other part with point number 4 is this. There is a theater of the mind that radio creates. Right now I'm running video. Hello to everybody out there. And that's about a third of our audience. 2/3 of our audience still just listen to the audio. It's theater of the mind. And there is something engaging about talk radio, late night, daytime, it doesn't matter, where you need to stay engaged. What we have to do by mixing it up with these guests and keeping it interesting is that you bring on guests that you don't necessarily agree with. And that's probably the most difficult lesson to learn. I know when I'm driving around in the car or I'm listening to something late at night, I want to find something that I don't agree with. That's where the magic happens. That's where you learn. You just don't. What is boring? Boring is if this audience, this fantastic, beautiful family is, coming in night after night and just going, yeah, man, okay, I agree with everything here. Your mind's going to wander. You're not going to stay engaged. Your attention's not going to be there. You need to go, wait a minute. What did that guest just say? What did Jimmy just say? No. That is the magic line where you cross into learning something. That is added to your data bank. That is added to the hard drive of your brain. It's additional information. You always want to be there. You want to stay motivated. You want to stay engaged. And you know what? If you can, you want to stay a little bit pissed off. That's how you learn. And that's what I have learned after 1,300 shows. So thank you for being here. 3 hours a night with all of you is just a special honor that and a privilege that Rita and I get to enjoy. So thank you for that. I am your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. I'll be right back with our guest on show number 1,300, Seth Breedlove. Seth Breedlove is here to announce his new film, The Mothman Legacy. I'm just going to let everybody know I watched the entire film today, start to finish. It's really good. We'll be talking about all of that and so much more when I return after this short break. This is Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Email is jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. I'll be right back. Stay with me.
This is Nicole Church, daughter of you-know-who, and you're listening to Fade to Black on JimmyChurchRadio.com and the Game Changer Network.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio.
Introducing the Game Changer blend from River Moon Coffee that delivers a customized blend made specifically for the Fadernauts. If the game is rigged, change the game. It's a bolder cup with some bite. Game Changer is the coffee of choice for those that prefer an organic dark roast that is slightly lighter and milder, but it's still dark. With wild notes of pecans and chocolate with a rich, balanced, full-bodied cup that is roasted to perfection for a great coffee to start your day, as an after-dinner coffee or anywhere in between. artisan, small batch roasted to perfection. USDA certified organic, all River Moon coffee is freshly roasted and packaged in the USA. Just go to rivermooncoffee.com or click on the banners over on our site and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. rivermooncoffee.com. Go Beckley Tappy.
This is the only way forward.
This is Fade to Black. Make contact. KGRAradio.com.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and you can get our podcast for just $2 per month. All you have to do is click on the podcast banner over at jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, folks. It's troubling times, and fear is pushing emotions, which in turn pushes health the wrong direction. Do you ever get an ache because life is uneasy? Try Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. Life Change Tea works on your digestive tract, helping to move food through quicker and comfortably so your health is spot on. Life Change Tea may not help with world issues, but it will help with your digestive issues. A glass a day helps keep the intruders away. So, change your life today. Log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. If your health game is off, get on by ordering Life Change Tea. Getthetea.com. And while you're on our site, look around at the great non-GMO organic supplements. And if you're a sales shopper, go to our specials page and see what's for you. I've been drinking the tea for 12 years and I'm sure glad for its health benefits. Again, that's getthetea.com. Getthetea.com. The tea that makes you go.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the planet.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Great night tonight. It is officially broadcast number 1300. It's a big night tonight. We got a big guest. Seth Breedlove joins us. That's right. Tonight we're going to announce his new film, The Mothman Legacy. We're going to talk about all of that and some of his other research too, which I've spent way too much time doing over the years. Tomorrow night, Greg House joins us. We will have an evening of artificial intelligence and singularity. Then, of course, Thursday night is Fader night with open lines all night long. But tonight, it's all about Seth Breedlove. That's right. The Mothman Legacy is the story of one of the most frightening American urban myths, the legend of the Mothman. Now, we're going to get into all of this tonight. Seth is an Ohio filmmaker. He has written, edited, and produced, directed shorts and features about a variety of topics, but is best known for his production company and the films they produce under the Small Town Monsters banner. Before film, Breedlove wrote for a number of websites, newspapers, and magazines, and learned some of the skills he employs as a director while working as a reporter. He has also appeared on numerous television and radio programs. Tonight, for the first time on Fade to Black, and I would like to welcome to the show Seth Breedlove. Seth, good evening, man. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. But you know what, Seth? It's your first time, which means you get the first-time guest disclaimer. So, you ready?
I'm terrified. Yeah.
Oh, man. It's this. Seth, it's just you and I sitting on my couch having a conversation as friends, and where the conversation starts, it starts. Where it ends. But we're going to end as friends. See, there you go.
As long as I don't have to sign anything.
No.
I'm afraid, there's some sort of form I have to fill out to be on.
We sent it to your fax machine. You didn't get it? Are you out of paper?
Yeah, we're waiting on a new roll.
Now, listen, I'm going to say a couple of things out of the gate. And one of them is this. I went through, and I mentioned this to you briefly earlier, but I went through a Seth period. I did, man. And I watched up to that point everything that you had done. And thankfully, it was all there, right? And I was just clicking through on the television and just had the next up. And I have a confession to make. I stole most of your material, okay? And it's like that. So when I talk about the Flatwoods monster, or I'm in a Boggy Creek, whatever it is, I sound like I know what I'm talking about. So I'm extending my thanks to you now officially. I feel better. I feel clean. Okay?
Yeah, but I mean, the thing about that is we both probably stand on the shoulders of giants, right? So I stole, quote unquote, stole my stuff from, Stanton Friedman and all these other researchers that kind of came before. I mean, Lauren Coleman and all these guys. So it's the best thing about our movies is I think we're putting the stuff in such an easily digestible format. So that's it's like the Cliff's Notes versions of these infamous sort of cases. So yeah, that's one of the highlights of what I get to do is I talk to people and they tell me later that our film or whatever act as an introduction to these stories, and then they really dive into the the really in-depth research that's already out there. But that's awesome, man. Thank you for that.
Well, and there's another aspect to this, and I think that in order to tell a story, you need to reach the widest audience, and you have the ability to reach out to everybody because there's something there, right? There's something there for the family, for mom and dad, for the serious researcher. There's all of that for somebody who wants to get a little bit scared. You've got that, you know, and so there's that aspect of it, but that's not an easy thing to do. You've definitely honed your skills, and then there's something else, and then we're going to talk more about you. But you have the ability, Seth, to get people to open up. You're going into some of these towns, and you are you have the ability to get where in most cases people don't like to talk about this, but you have that ability, man.
That's just our approach has always been more toward simply capturing real people and their take on their personal experiences. And I don't, we don't have an agenda, so we're not necessarily out to prove the existence of something like Bigfoot or UFOs or whatever. We're really just trying to capture what people experience, or in the case of just locals and people from communities who have an opinion on this stuff, we're just trying to capture their opinion. And I think I worked in newspapers for 8 years doing freelance reporting, and that's like one of those things you kind of pick up when you're doing that sort of writing for a while. I hesitate to call it journal. I think in my bio it mentions like journalism. It's not journalism. I mean, I did the smallest small town reporting you can imagine. Right. But you definitely pick up those I guess like people skills, and so I bring that, I guess I bring that over with me to Small Town Monsters. And I think that's how we managed to get people to open up about their experiences and, their sightings or whatever it is. And that's we sort of founded this whole thing. Small Town Monsters was founded on that, the fact that we were going to allow people to talk about their experiences. And that's what's so interesting about making a project like the Bell Witch that we're working on now, because there are no, it's a story about a case that happened 200 years ago. So we don't have those witnesses to talk to, but you can still bring that element of truth telling to it. And that's sort of what we've been attempting to do for 5 years now.
I can't say who, what, or where, but I'll tell you off of the air. But I've seen the Bell Witch's skull.
Nice.
Yeah, nice. Man. I'll send you pictures.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. All right. It's nuts, man. It's nuts. I can't believe I just said that on the air. It was okay, man. I'm going to get myself in trouble, but I have. Okay. Now, growing up, let's actually turn this back before we move forward. And I want to talk about Flatwoods before we get to Mothman. But growing up, were you always into this? Did you have a UFO sighting? Did your mom have a Ouija board and freak you out? You know, what got you into this?
No, it's so boring. Like this is what I've been saying for like 5 years. I have got to concoct some sort of tale about like being abducted as a child or something, because I've really got nothing. I didn't get into this stuff until later in life. I was in my early 20s and I was working a very boring sort of menial desk job, and it was podcasts. Honestly, it was like listening to stuff like what you do, and this is what got me into it. I had nothing else to do, and I started listening to shows like this, and this is what opened the door for me and sort of piqued my curiosity in these topics. And then, you know, obviously once you open that door, there's no going back, and you just kind of find yourself going further and further down the rabbit hole. And that's where I am now. You know, I mean, this started about 12 years ago. And I've now been to, you know, however many, probably 30 states across the US and however many sighting locations. We've interviewed close to 150 people. It's just a sort of endless parade of weird, and it doesn't stem from any experience that I had, and I still have only had, you know, one or two things happen to me that I consider truly unexplainable.
I'm going to interrupt because that was my next question. Have you ever had a paranormal or supernatural experience or a UFO sighting? And that's, even to hear you say it's only happened a couple of times. Do you still approach this then with the eyes of a skeptic, which I think is very healthy?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely still come at it pretty skeptically, and so I've experienced two things. One of them is sort of a spook light story, and the other, I hesitate to call it paranormal or supernatural because it was related to Bigfoot, and I personally don't believe Bigfoot is paranormal or supernatural. I think it's some sort of natural animal. But we experienced rock throws and screams in the Ouachita Mountains in southeastern Oklahoma about 2 years ago, July 2 years ago. Late in the evening, actually about 2 o'clock in the morning, something threw rocks at a nearby shed right where we were camping, and then started whooping and laughing in the middle of the night. And we were far away from human civilization, so I don't necessarily believe it was a person that was doing that. So I've experienced that, and then I saw a strange light in the woods near where I actually grew up while I was with my dad one night a couple of years ago. And that's about it. Like nothing crazy. So like I said, I really need to come up with some sort of insane story at some point.
Well, what is the rocks hitting the shed at 2 a.m.? That'll scare the crap out of you. That's actually pretty cool. I've never experienced that, and I would like to. But a strange light in the woods. Now that is something else altogether. What happened?
We were actually out on a like what we called a Bigfoot hike, but it was really just an excuse for my dad and I to kind of walk around the woods together. And we were in an area called the Zor Wetlands, which is just a massive sort of protected area right outside of Bolivar, Ohio, which is where I grew up. It's actually, we filmed a really important scene for our Momo film down there, a big like late night sequence. Same place where we filmed this, but my dad and I were down there, and it was late at night, and we were walking around, and I saw there's a large, they call it a lake, but it's more of a pond, and I saw light, an amber light, sort of glinting off the water, and I looked what would be sort of southwest across this lake, and then beyond that, and there's this big valley, and you can kind of see, pretty far. You're seeing about a half mile, and across the valley you can see a tree line, and I saw this massive sort of glowing amber light rise up out of the trees across the valley. My instant reaction was to think that I was seeing the moon. Like the moon starting to rise above the tree line, but I looked above me, and the moon was already pretty clearly visible in the other direction, and higher up in the sky as well. so I kept watching this, and it was so slow. It came up out of these trees at such a slow I mean, it was just moving so slowly, really kind of creepy. Pokes up, pointing out to my dad. My dad watches it. We watch it. It sits in the sky, and this thing, by the way, was massive. I said a spook light, but I mean, whatever this was actually fairly large because we were seeing it probably a quarter mile away, maybe even a half mile. And
Could you see the moon at the same time? In other words, you knew it wasn't the moon.
No, we knew, 100% we knew it was the moon because that was sort of the first thing I was looking for. So we're watching this object. It sits in the sky for maybe like 40 seconds and then really slowly just hovers back down into the woods. So it sat above this tree line and then just really slowly went back down. And probably the weirdest thing about it to me is that the area where this happened, where I was seeing the light come up, is an area where a lot of weird stuff has happened. In fact, in our On the Trail of Bigfoot film, we detailed some strange animal mutilations and Bigfoot sightings that happened outside of Bolivar back in the 70s, and those would have taken place in the exact same area as where we saw this light come up out of the woods.
Now, here you are. You're a filmmaker, and you have a sighting like this, and now you're going to tell me you didn't film it.
No, and honestly, now that I'm telling the story, I can't remember if that happened in 2013 or 2014, but either way, I don't believe that I would have even owned a camera at
cell
the time.
phone.
Right. Well, that I had.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's pretty cool. Well, if you think it's that big, right, where you could mistake it for the moon and you turn around and you see the moon and now you can scratch that off of the list. You're seeing something that you can't explain, and that's something I wish I was there for. But your dad was. What did your dad think he was seeing?
It's funny. My dad just kind of wrote it off. I don't think he thought twice about it, and I've mentioned it to him at least once or twice, and he kind of acts like he doesn't remember it. Which my dad is in his mid 70s and his memory is kind of spotty, which mine is as well. But yeah, whenever I bring it up, he acts as if he does not remember the incident.
That's funny.
I don't know if he's just sort of ignoring it or if if it's something that he genuinely can't recall.
No, you guys were both abducted and it was missing time. See, you got to look at it that way.
Now I have my story.
Yeah, now you have your story. You need to do some regression therapy and see what happens. You've seen people of Earth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there you go. You can get into a group. Hi, my name is Seth.
Right. We actually interviewed a guy named Mike Stevens in New Hampshire who runs sort of an experiencer help group, like a communal sort of self-help group for experiencers in New Hampshire. We interviewed him for On the Trail of UFOs.
Now let's. I wanted to talk about the Flatwoods film that you put together, and it is in a lot of ways. If you get into small town monsters. Your Flatwoods production is all encompassing of what Small Town Monsters is about, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And for you to go up and get the families together, and my memory was like you were walking from house to house practically, right? It was pretty bizarre. But how was it that you were able to, because this was an older case, how were you able to find so many people from the families that went through this?
The coolest thing about this is I hadn't rewatched this movie in a very long time, and we just happened to be in Flatwoods last weekend. So I had we did a screening of the movie at the Elk Theater in Sutton, West Virginia, right next door to the Flatwoods Monster Museum. So this is like a film that I just had a refresher course on. So we were the first person to interview Ed May, who was one of the original witnesses. We were the first group he had ever spoken to, and the last group, and we're the last documentary to get to interview Ed and Fred May, both of them. So there, as far as we know, there's one other living witness named Ronnie Shaver. We're not actually even positive he's still around, but he's one of the ones who kind of has fallen off the grid and they don't know where he is. So Ed and Fred are the two living witnesses, and we were able to interview them and sort of get this story down, directly from them. And it's such an important piece of not just like UFO lore or whatever, but West Virginia history. It takes place in 1952. It involves not just a strange creature sighting, but a UFO flap that happened across the state that involved at least two objects being seen crashing. One in basically the Flatwoods monster incident, which is this object streaks across the sky and lands on this hill. These kids go up the hill and encounter some sort of monster. But there was another object that streaked across the sky that was seen crashing near Sutton and the Elk River. So there was actually potentially two downed objects that came down that night. But that was a really intense shoot, and it was intended originally to be a short film that we were going to release on YouTube. And as soon as we ended up getting the two living witnesses involved in the story, we sort of went all in on making it as detailed as we could, while still maintaining a short film format, which is what we were going for. So we ended up with these interviews that were great. I think we had a lot of information in there that it might have been out there, but people hadn't really connected some of the dots on it. So we were able to do that and interview those witnesses.
Yeah, that's right. Because there were a couple of moments in the film, and you don't get this with other research and other documentaries that are out there, especially with this case where you've got the original. Well, we were walking up the hill, we were just kids, and we came up. You're like, man, this is a firsthand account. Right, you're not getting second, third. I heard from Bob and I heard from Phil when we were kids that this is what they did. That's not the case here, and you're on location.
And the most important thing about it to me is we were able to take what is sort of known as the legend version of that story, right? Like the kids go up the hill, their dog dies, there's this mist that attacks them, there's a UFO sitting on none of that's true. Like the kids went up the hill, they encountered some sort of creature or mechanical object is what they said on top of the hill. But the dog lived. They don't recall any of the mist, and they don't recall a UFO. It's seeing it. Now there's elements to that might have been true, which have been sort of over the years have been, maybe I don't even exaggerated to such an extent that the story became what we know today. But we were able to let the witnesses tell the story in their own words. And what I think they end up sort of indicating to the audience is despite this sort of mythical version of the story that exists, there's a very believable, rational, while still being somewhat fantastical, real event that happened. And these two guys, even towards the end of their lives, insist that this is what happened, and they have nothing to gain by coming forward with their account of the Flatwoods monster incident. So just in rewatching it last weekend, that was kind of what struck me is the emotion of these two guys that have sort of held on to the story their entire lives, and now both of them are kind of in bad health. They've both been battling cancer for years. They're able to relay this story in their own words, probably for the first time. I know Fred had been on other documentaries, but I had never seen anything where they were able to tell this version of the event. And I think that was probably my biggest takeaway in rewatching it.
Yeah, because they're able, here's our house, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? They're right there. They're on location. I wanted to ask you this really quick, not to be sensational or anything like that, but did you see the Project Blue Book History Channel version of the Flatwoods monster?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, you can tell me. Did you roll your eyes? I was a little bit upset with the artistic freedom that they took in that. What did you take away from it?
Yeah, I think that was one of those stories where I couldn't figure out why they didn't simply retell it as it happened, or at least, you know, they changed the details to such an extent. I think it was like a little boy and a little girl and their mom, and so they took elements of the original Flatwoods case. They call it the Flatwoods monster case, and then they kind of do something completely different with it. It ends up being like an owl sitting on a charred tree, right? Like it's that entire idea that that's what they saw that night is so nonsensical once you actually hear them once you hear Ed and Fred in their own words relate what happened to them. You know, they did not see an owl sitting on a tree. They saw some sort of mechanical object. They could see the moonlight glinting off of the you know, the object and the metallic sort of surface of the object, and the things that they recall sort of defy this idea that what they encountered that night was an owl on a tree.
Now, we just have a couple minutes before the break. So before we get there, one last question. Do you have a favorite case? Not necessarily a favorite episode, because there may be something you haven't covered yet, or a favorite cryptid?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it's still Bigfoot. Like, I think it just comes back to Bigfoot always. I don't know why that is, other than the fact that it's the most believable for me. But I mean, if I could put Flatwoods Monster in that category, I would say, you know, maybe Flatwoods Monster. But I always come back to Bigfoot. Always.
And you do so much with John Keel. Of course, we'll come back to that. But one thing that John Keel, because I've been on the wrong side of the fence when it comes to Bigfoot. I need convincing. And I've had every researcher, I'd have everybody on this show, and I usually started off with, look, man, you need to sell me on this, right? But then I saw footprints. Right. And it's on film, by the way. I'll send it to you. But it was a pretty incredible moment. It didn't push me over the edge, but it's pretty freaky when you see something like this, you know, so deep in hard soil. That being said, going back to John Keel, I'm feeling that you just said you just think it's Bigfoot is real, but it's an animal, right? Okay, that's fine. I'm thinking more on the interdimensional side, which is what John Keel has suggested, not with Bigfoot, but just in ET in general, in that we haven't got a carcass, right? We don't have a skeleton. We don't have these things that you would think at some point Bigfoot would have been hit by a car by now. So maybe I'm leaning on the interdimensional side. What do you think about John Keel's take on all of this?
Well, I think Keel had such an interesting outlook on it too, because I mean his ultra terrestrial idea was not even necessarily interdimensional, and that's something that I learned when we were making the Mothman Legacy. It was this idea that it could be something else. It could be on a different spectrum from us, or you know, like there's so many directions you can take that idea. But you can't overlook this strange sort of like paranormal Bigfoot accounts. There's numerous. Like, we've made multiple movies and documentaries that end up focusing on cases that involve, you know, either UFOs or strange lights in the woods and Bigfoot, you know, sort of seen together.
Right.
All I can really do is tell you that where the evidence that I see sort of leads me, and it's always led me in the direction of undiscovered ape. And what I experienced in the woods seemed to be, you know, more of a flesh and blood animal than an interdimensional being. But I don't just write off all the quote unquote weird Bigfoot cases either. There's too many of them that just write it all off as kooks and crazies. So there's something. I mean, there's something to that, you know, like whether you're dealing with two varying phenomena that sort of like mirror each other, or if there's just, you know, if the abilities of something like a Bigfoot are so astronomical that it almost seems supernatural. It's hard to tell, but Keel's research into Bigfoot's so interesting too, because he looked into cases in New York State, and that's one of the places where I find myself being pulled back to a lot. And I think we've we've trod the same ground as Keel quite a bit when it comes to Bigfoot up in that area.
Let's take our break right here, Seth. Stay right there. It's going to be a great night. Our 1,300th show. Pretty cool, huh, Seth? 1,300 shows in the can. When we come back, we're going to talk about the release of his new film, The Mothman Legacy. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. You can follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. You can follow Seth. It's strange. We've got the links up. But it's Seth Breedlove. More on that when we come back. Stay with us.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station. Salt Lake City, Utah. Van Buren, Arkansas.
Hello, my name is Billy Carson, and I'm a best-selling author and the founder of ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. Together with my team, we have built an all-new conscious streaming TV platform designed with every family member in mind. If you have ever wanted to travel the world and attend lectures and workshops from your favorite speakers but weren't able to, look no further. ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. There are dozens of workshops and lectures from speakers you know and love. We have also included amazing categories to assure that your consciousness is entertained and elevating on a daily basis. Amazing interviews, ancient history, ascension knowledge, wisdom teachings, documentaries, conspiracies, mysteries, health and fitness, conscious cooking, meditations, finance, yoga, and so much more. To start your free trial on any mobile device or computer, surf to ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. That's Forbidden Knowledge with the number 4, ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. Again, visit ForbiddenKnowledge.tv today.
Listen, I know, and you know, that you've always wanted your first crystal skull. Or maybe you're a collector just like me, but you just don't know where to go to find the real thing. Then I met Carolyn Ford over at EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com. Carolyn is the guardian of Einstein, one of the most respected ancient crystal skulls in the world. All of her unique skulls have been imprinted sitting with Einstein in his sacred lodge and are carved from the finest gemstone and materials. Imprinting is the process of receiving the ancient wisdom from the master skull or master computer, Einstein, the ancient crystal skull. To see Carolyn's current collection of crystal skulls, just visit her store at EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com or click on the banner over on our site. Don't forget to use the promo code Jimmy at checkout to receive 10% off of your order today. That's promo code Jimmy. Finding your first or next crystal skull is easy. Just visit EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Yes, Rivermoon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy.
Hello, I'm Katie, and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA Digital Broadcast Station.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier. And this is Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers. Yes. We are also Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And I'm Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
And you're listening to Jimmy Church.
The Revolution.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and you can become an official Fadernaut by just going to our membership section at jimmychurchradio.com.
Hello, this is Serena Wright Taylor from Conscious Life Expo, and you're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church, who holds the Lucky Pony record for the best astrological chart since 1963. True story.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black, across the globe on the Game Changer Radio Network and the one and only KGRA Radio, The Planet.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Seth Breedlove is here, talking about the release of his new film, The Mothman Legacy. Let's get straight to it. Seth, the big premiere date is what?
October 20th is the premiere date. So right before Halloween. It's kind of the perfect time to unleash a story about America's favorite winged demon
with red eyes.
Yeah.
And so October 20th, where can everybody go to sign up, pre-order, get more information?
Yeah, smalltownmonsters.com is where you can get pre-orders if you're interested in physical media like DVDs and Blu-rays and stuff like that. For the rest of that, we're releasing through 1091 Pictures, so the movie will be available on most major VOD streaming channels, so all your iTunes and Amazon and all that kind of stuff, and you can find all those links pretty much as soon as the movie goes live on the 20th. And I think they're working on some sort of pre-order thing, but nothing's set yet, so just stay tuned.
Okay, so everything will be updated at smalltownmonsters.com.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, right on. Very excited about this. Now, I've seen the film, and I want to get into that in a second. This next question you probably have never gotten before. So before I get to Zach and Jason and Adrian, right, Mark, and before we get to them,
yeah,
who's your narrator?
So the main narrator has been Lyle. I think Lyle Blackburn has done more STM projects than probably anyone else. And he's done, man, at this point, it's got to be like 5 or 6 titles. So he did, and he's the one that did the Mothman Legacy. Lyle obviously is a pretty well-known author and investigator, and he's done I'd say the definitive work on the Boggy Creek monster, the Falk monster, with his Beast of Boggy Creek book. He did a really great book about the Lizard Man. And he was seen back in the day on Monsters and Mysteries in America that used to be on Destination America. I have no idea what that network's called now.
Right. And this is the thing, and especially with a film like Mothman, is Lyle the fifth Beatle?
I think he's probably like in the top 3 Beatles.
Yeah, so exactly. I mean, he is the best, and I wanted to give credit where credit is due out of the gate. And who is the rest of your team?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with my wife, who's my producing partner, and she's been producing since. The thing about Adrian is she's been behind the scenes all the way back to Minerva, but she started producing with, I believe it was the Flatwoods Monster was the first time she really stepped into a big producing role. And at this point, she's the person who's keeping us afloat. I mean, she's literally responsible for the fact that we haven't gone bankrupt and gone under, which is your job.
I heard that.
As a producer, she keeps us alive. So Adrian is my producing partner, and then Zach and Jason, Zach Palmisano, who is typically my director of photography, especially on the films. It gets a little different with On the Trail of that series, but for the Mothman Legacy and Momo and Terror in the Skies, that's all Zach Palmisano's director of photography. Jason Udis, who I've been friends with since we were kids, he's a production coordinator and sound. sort of recordist, but he does. The thing about indie film is everyone does everything. So I can give them these labels, but it really doesn't mean anything. I mean, like Zach was acting in The Bell Witch, and like everyone plays multiple roles. Mark Matsky, who co-hosts my podcast with me, and then helps do a lot of writing on the STM projects, and numerous jobs behind the scenes. And then that's sort of Brandon Dalo does all the music and has been doing the music since Minerva, and I think that's our core group right there, and it grows. Like the team continues to grow. Each year we're launching a second season of On the Trail of UFOs later this year, and we'll have Andrew Peterson as director of photography on that series. So things just keep expanding, and but that core group, it's sort of there's the six of us that are pretty much at the core of everything.
Now, out of the gate with Mothman, it is extremely cinematic. Right. Mm-hmm. And there is a way, and like going back to Flatwoods and some of your older projects, you had a look and feel that was very cool. Is down home the right word?
Oh man, I'd love that.
Right. Okay.
To be how you put it, yeah.
But now, Mothman, it's full on cinematic, man. Is that Zach? Is that you? Brandon is very talented, by the way, and the music complements everything. But who is responsible for the look and feel that starts out of the gate in Mothman?
So I definitely have to say Zach is probably responsible for the look of the documentary. Especially when we're talking B-roll and all the amazing location B-roll and the interviews, the look of the interviews. That's all Zach. When it comes to the recreations on this one, I can take a little bit of the credit there simply because COVID hit just when our recreations were going into filming. So what ended up needing to happen was that the crew was basically just me. So all the recreations, including the opening and closing bookends with the young girl, all that stuff was shot by just me, with basically no crew. So the recreations are all me, but as far as the doc and the look of the movie, which is sort of what defines the look of this thing, that's definitely our director of photography, and he shot with some really cool Soviet these really cool Russian Soviet lenses that they customized, and I think that's what gives the movie probably its very specific look. But I mean, again, Zach deserves all the credit in the world, and at the same time, West Virginia is a gorgeous state. People kind of forget about that, and get lost in all the jokes about hillbillies and backwoods and all that, Deliverance Country and all that kind of stuff. But it's a beautiful state. It's probably my favorite state. And once you really get into it, anywhere you look, there's something really interesting to film, and you can just capturing that is the most important part of it.
Now there's probably an Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3 when it comes to Mothman, historically speaking, and which is actually presented in this film too as well. And I'm glad that you historically went through all of that. But there are many in this audience right now that are, of course, have heard of Mothman. And they may identify with what Mothman, but they don't know the story. Let's do a little bit of Mothman 101 and start at the beginning. And let's start there. What is the Mothman story and how did it start?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think if we're talking about a 3-act structure, I would say that the most infamous, the most famous part of the Mothman story is the 1966 and 67 part, and that's your chapter 1. Your part 2 is actually going to be what's in this movie, and then there's more that maybe we'll get to someday that would actually comprise an act 3. But your act 1 is 1966 and 1967, and in 1966 there's a flurry of activity surrounding this tiny town in West Virginia, right on the border with Ohio, sitting on the banks of the Ohio River, right near the confluence of the Kanawha River and the Ohio River. And in this tiny town of Point Pleasant, people start seeing UFOs and having run-ins with mysterious men in black, which, like that in itself, that part of the story could be its own movie or series of movies. But on top of that, two couples, the Scarberrys and the Mallets, are driving one evening out near an abandoned TNT manufacturing facility, which, talk about the most amazing setting for a horror movie you've ever seen is that place. They're out there one night when they encounter a 6 to 7 foot tall, dark, leathery skinned creature with wings and glowing red eyes. They take off in their car after they see it, and it chases their car. It speeds up to 100 miles an hour all the way back to Point Pleasant. And that event kicks off a whole series of sightings that take place around Point Pleasant. Is what people traditionally think of when they think of the Mothman, but these sightings actually took place all around the Ohio Valley and really all around Appalachia in general. Like we've tracked sightings all the way, up into the middle central West Virginia and all the way as far as like Hocking, Ohio. So there's sightings in probably a 200-mile radius, around Point Pleasant, but it all seems to be centered around that town of Point Pleasant. And these sightings take place for the better part of a year. 13 months would actually be the correct, sort of timeline if you're really looking at it. They include sightings of this strange Mothman creature, the Men in Black encounters, the UFOs, all that kind of stuff. There's even a run-in on 77 on Route 77 with a chimney lantern shaped UFO that lands on the side of the road, and a man that sees this object encounters a creature calling itself Injured Cold, and there's just a mountain of weird paranormal activity that's taking place around this area for 13 months. And during that time, it all seems to be building to something, and people can't figure out what it is, and the activity is getting stranger and stranger, and you've just got this mounting sense of dread that something's about to happen. And in the middle of all of that is a investigative reporter who was actually doing an article on UFOs for Playboy magazine, who happened to end up in Point Pleasant around the same time, named John Keel. And Keel starts covering these stories, these sightings in a newspaper, or not a newspaper, but in different magazine columns and things like that. And there's just this constant mounting of activity, and it all culminates on, man, these dates get screwed up in my head, but I think it's December 15th, 1967, when the Silver Bridge, which is a massive bridge spanning the Ohio River, collapses during rush hour traffic and takes with it 46 lives. And that event, to most people, that signals the end of the Mothman story, right? Because that's what we know from the most famous writing on the Mothman story, which is the Mothman Prophecies by John Keel. It's my favorite aspect of the Mothman story is that 66, 67 story, because it has a beginning, middle, and an end. But the fact is, like, it didn't actually end in 67, and in fact, if anything, the activity just spread out further from Point Pleasant.
Let me jump in right there. There's two aspects to this. You're right. It's a pretty incredible 2-year period for Point Pleasant. Up until 1966, were there, historically speaking, Mothman type sightings that predated what happened in 1967
You've got to do some stretching to get them, but they're there. Specifically, like I could talk about things like Thunderbirds and man-bat type creatures. There were sightings of what were termed as very large owls, abnormally large owls, 7-8 foot tall owls. Mark Hall, who's a famous cryptozoologist, referred to them as Big Hoot instead of Bigfoot. But I would say the thing that always stands out to me, and this is one of my favorite little sidebars to the Mothman story, and it was one that was written about by an author named James Gay Jones in his Appalachian, man, I can't remember the name of the book, but he did a book that sort of compiled Appalachian folklore. There were sightings of what was known as the Birdman right outside of Point Pleasant, and this would have been right around the time of World War I and II. And these sightings seem to be of a man-sized bird that was, it had the body of a man but had the head of a bird, is kind of how it was written about. And these sightings tended to precede some sort of disaster, so whether it was a flood or someone's barn burning or something like that. There were all sorts of folk legends around the area around that time of this Birdman. So that's sort of your big, when it comes to, I guess, oral tradition that's being passed around at that time. That's the big one that seems to maybe connect to the Mothman. There were sightings prior to the November, I think it's November 15th. Again, my dates get all messed up.
That's
but
all right.
The sighting by the Scarberries and Mallets. There were other sightings preceding that. Probably the biggest one is there was a National Guard sighting, a National Guardsman sighting right near the TNT area that took place the year prior to the 66 sighting.
Mm-hmm.
And that was actually, what's interesting about that is Jeff Walmsley, who runs the Mothman Museum in Point Pleasant, his dad had something to do with the National Guard facility around that time. I can't remember if he was actually in the National Guard or what it was, but Jeff recalls hearing stories being told by people at the National Guard facility around that time of a creature seen in a tree across the road from the armory that had red eyes and seemed to be abnormally large. And that would have been the year prior. The sighting that gets overlooked, which is probably the first locally reported sighting of the Mothman, is the Clendenin sighting that happened in October or September of 1966 that involved a group of grave diggers seeing a large winged monster fly overhead as they were actually there to dig a grave. And what's really kind of cool about that Clendenin story is I just found this out this past week. There's only really one graveyard in Clendenin, and it's the perfect place for this to happen. It sits on top of this hill. It sounds like, again, a setting for a horror movie.
Right.
But those are the stories that precede the sort of famous kickoff for the 66 stuff.
Now, Jeff, by the way, knows way too much.
Yeah.
And he's awesome. He's awesome. He's an encyclopedia. Yeah. He's very, very cool. Now, but then after the Silver Bridge collapse, and the sightings locally, what happened at that point? Did they just drop off?
Well,
the movie, going back to the Mothman Prophecies movie,
right.
And not to call that a documentary or anything, but it is based on John Keel, sure. And it seems like that was a resolve, right? That was the answer to these issues. But what actually happened after the Silver Bridge collapse?
Yeah, sightings didn't stop. In fact, like I have reports from people who claim to see the Mothman right over or near the site of the fallen Silver Bridge, right around the same time that the bridge had collapsed, following the bridge collapse. And there were sightings. Jeff Walmsley took sightings into the 60s and 70s as well, right around Point Pleasant. The thinking when I talked to Jeff about this, and this seems to ring true for what I know about small towns, is that it wasn't that sightings stopped. It's that the attention shifted to the collapse of the bridge. And it wasn't as attention grabbing anymore for people, especially when you're talking about like local newspapers, to report on Mothman sightings when people are dealing with the death of 46 people in a community that only has a few thousand, so everyone's connected to someone that died in this bridge collapse. So it's no longer
cool.
It's no longer exciting. Yeah,
right.
It's not exciting or fun to cover a flying man creature flying around the town. And so their attention moves to other things over time. But the sightings didn't stop. And it's like I said, when we started making this movie, the initial idea was to do an all-encompassing continuation of what happened following 67, and really delve into more of the Men in Black and UFO activity. And what happened is we did the opposite. We really focused in on the Mothman sightings because we found there were so many. We had more witnesses than we could actually interview on this movie. So I believe we have 8 witness interviews in the film. We could have easily had 12, but you reach a point where you're like, okay, we can't do all this. So in our own research in making this film, and by the way, I really have to give a shout out to Heather Mosier, who's our research girl at Small Town Monsters. She's a huge help to me, especially. But she was able to turn up sighting after sighting you don't have to put a ton of effort into finding claims of Mothman encounters, and that isn't just modern day stuff. We're talking about late 60s, early 70s, mid 70s, all that kind of stuff. You really don't have to look that far to find people claiming to have seen something strange in the skies over West Virginia. And I think one big takeaway from our movie is I don't think this is all the same creature. I don't think what people are seeing, it's all connected. You have so many different accounts of what people are witnessing, whether it's Les Odell waking up in the middle of the night and finding a creature in his room the night before, his father dies, or it's someone seeing a pterodactyl type being flying past their window late at night. This doesn't all seem to be the same thing.
Now, how much in your research and you're diving into this and you're interviewing witnesses, how much responsibility falls on the shoulders of John Keel, right?
Yeah, it's a massive amount of credit, or it's hard to know how to put it, because Keel's the one that shined the spotlight on the Mothman, and in doing so, he may have opened the door for a lot of hoaxing and things like that.
Right.
Not intentionally, but unintentionally. He put a spotlight on something. I've been saying for a couple of years that the Mothman right now is probably the most popular paranormal creature, cryptid, urban legend, whatever you want to call it. I think it's the most popular, maybe even more so than Bigfoot. And when that happens, you run the risk of, a lot of people wanting to insert themselves into the story. But Keel's the one, certainly on a national scale, that kept the Mothman in some semblance of the public conscious. Locally, the credit would have to go to Mary Heyer, who
was the journalist, the reporter.
She was the local reporter who kept the spotlight on the Mothman on a regional sort of scale. And actually, if you really look into her writing, she's the one that was constantly keeping up with reports, and then she would pass them on to Keel. So it's sort of a combination of the both of them. And then there's other investigators who were in the area at the time who get overlooked. And certainly today we can, look at other West Virginia investigators who take reports. There's the Seaches out of Pennsylvania, and they investigate this kind of stuff, and less even that's in the film. But it all sort of goes back to Keel.
We got to take a break right here, Seth. So let's get that in. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight is, now, first off, when we come back after the break with Seth, jumping into all of this is important, but the responsibility of these reporters and how the community embraced all of this is also very important. We're going to do all of that when we come back. Our guest tonight, Seth Breedlove. His new film is The Mothman Legacy. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRARadio.com.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Do you want to be an official Fadernaut? Of course you do. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. Just go to our membership section at jimmychurchradio.com.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA. KGRARadio.com.
Telepath is a weekly digital newsletter filled with the latest paranormal news, trending topics, and fresh articles from some of the most popular critical thinkers in the community today. Stay informed on your favorite paranormal podcasts and live streaming talk shows. Interact with the Telepath and upload your paranormal story or pics. It could be featured in an upcoming edition. Sign up right now for the free Telepath newsletter at paranormal.radio. That's paranormal.radio.
Including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Seth Breedlove is here. Tomorrow night, Greg Hausch. Thursday night is another Fader night with open lines all night long. Tonight, Seth is with us. He's an Ohio filmmaker, and his new film is The Mothman Legacy. It is releasing on most streaming services on October 20th. Distributed by 1091 Films. You can check out all of the information and pre-order the DVD and Blu-ray over at smalltownmonsters.com. Now, Seth, one of the sensitive subjects, and I do want to address this, and I touched upon it before the break, is that we're on a fine balance here with not only the community and how this is covered, but they have a celebration each year. They have a festival, the Mothman Festival. We have 46 people that died in the bridge collapse that is tied to this, and John Keel's coverage and others, right? And the embracing of the Mothman legacy, right? Not only the name of the film, but the way that the rest of the country looks at this. And you don't really want to celebrate too much because 46 people died. 2 were never even found and recovered. Right. And so you walk the fine line here, both as a filmmaker and as a community. You've got a museum, you have T-shirts, right? There's 2 things that have to be looked at.
Yeah, I mean, when we made our first movie, when we made The Mothman in Point Pleasant, that's the film we made that looked at the 66 and 67 stuff and the collapse of the Silver Bridge and all that. That was a line we had to walk, and we had to do it while we had people involved who had lost loved ones on the bridge.
Right.
We dedicated that movie to Carolyn Harris, who died I believe it was either late December or early January of 2016/2017. Right, she was supposed to be a key player in our film, and I had a meeting with her. She lost a son and a husband on the bridge. Her son, I believe, was 4. So it was a sensitive topic. There's when you talk to people in Point Pleasant. I think at this point, a lot of those people separate the Mothman from the Silver Bridge. And outside of Keel's work and pop culture, there's nothing connecting the Mothman to the Silver Bridge, other than Keel and maybe a few odd stories here or there where people claim they were told something about the Silver Bridge. There's nothing to say that Mothman was there to warn people about the collapse of the bridge. That's sort of become a pop culture staple. So you can walk a tightrope there. What we had to do was simply focus on the history of what happened. And once you do that and don't try to insert yourself into the narrative at all, I think it's fairly easy to simply tell that story and wrap everything up with the collapse of the Silver Bridge, because in Point Pleasant, that's when people stopped talking about it. And that was the story we were telling, was the story of Point Pleasant and the people that live there and how they view the Mothman story. And again, what happened after 67 broadened out so far beyond Point Pleasant that the story ceased being simply about Point Pleasant and became a much larger, something much larger scale, and it continues to grow to this day. And like the Mothman Legacy focuses on Appalachia, so it's West Virginia, and that Appalachian culture and what might have influenced some of the retellings of the Mothman even up to today.
Now, we keep going back to John Keel for a lot of reasons. Mm-hmm. How did he deal with it? Did he feel in the end, with the bridge collapse and other things, was that a cross to bear? Did he feel like maybe he needed to walk away and not write about this?
Yeah, I think he did, because he definitely put distance there, between himself and the Mothman until later in his life. And he really didn't come back to the story too much until the Richard Gere movie came out. And I know from talking to Steve Ward, who's in our film, The Mothman Legacy, his impression was that once the Mothman Prophecies film came out and the statue was erected in Point Pleasant of the Mothman and that kind of thing, that was when Keel sort of came back around to it, where he returned. He actually went back to Point Pleasant and was able to see the impact that his investigations had on the culture of the community, and that it was something that lived on. And that was his legacy, like his when we titled this film The Mothman Legacy, it isn't solely about the Mothman as a creature and ongoing sightings. It's about a lot of the people that are connected to that story. So you've got Jeff and his daughter and the museum and all the things that are going on there, and the financial impact that the museum has had on the town. But you also have John Keel and his probably realization later in life that the Mothman was probably the biggest thing that he would be remembered for. And I definitely think it is, like, regardless of what we know about Keel and his work and the respect we have for it, outside of the Mothman, most people don't know about Keel. So it's become the thing that he is most closely associated with. And I think that's true for most of the people who were intricately involved with that Mothman story.
Now, how did Keel change with his views, not only in his reporting, but personally, about this being physical and possibly starting to reach into something else?
Well, yeah, and I don't know the trajectory of Keel's research into the paranormal, so I don't know that he started, as sort of the flesh and blood camp, and then graduated to this interdimensional / ultra terrestrial sort of theorizing. I don't know that happened, or if he came to it and that was like one of the maybe the way he approached it to begin with. I know he is one of the people that popularized that idea, that maybe we're dealing with something other than an alien or an unknown creature. Maybe we're dealing with something that's coming from another plane of existence. And the interesting thing about that is he connected that to all paranormal phenomena. So he kind of felt like it all was interconnected, like all of this stuff, Bigfoot and Mothman and UFOs, it's all something that might be coming from another place, another again, like going back to that plane of existence idea. And when it comes to, I would assume that a lot of that, or maybe not a lot, I would assume that a large some part of his research into the Mothman was due to that idea, that there's something far more mysterious at play here than unknown creatures and mysterious government agents and aliens from outer space. Because when you really look at the Mothman story, especially that 66, 67 stuff, you're dealing with a carnival of weird taking place around Point Pleasant at that time. It isn't just Mothman sightings. It's Mothman sightings and men in black and strange objects in the sky and poltergeist activity taking place in people's homes and other strange creatures. There's reports of a creature, a hairy Bigfoot type creature seen in the TNT area that had wings during that same time period. So you're dealing with a whole cavalcade of bizarre phenomena that all seem to descend on Point Pleasant, and Keel's the guy who's taking all these reports. So if he's the type of guy who's going to attempt to find an answer, I mean, that's one thing that sets Keel and me apart. I don't really try. I'm not trying to make sense of any of this. I'm interested in cataloging it or documenting the stories. Keel I think was interested in hypothesizing about what it might have actually been taking place, and that's where you come up with this ultra-terrestrial interdimensional idea, and that's due to trying to make sense of the utter bizarre nature of everything he's seeing.
And there was one aspect to Keel's view, the interdimensional aspect of this, a parallel world, call it what you will, is that today science is looking very hard when you talk about physics and quantum physics and some of these physicists that are writing books and talking about crazy science fiction way out there subjects like the multiverse or parallel worlds or extra dimensions and things that are part of our very existence, and the study of numbers and algorithms that are proving what they are suggesting here. But this is an aspect that Keel talked about so long ago, where today, if we start to accept the multiverse, right? 6, 7, 8, 9, 11 dimensions and parallel worlds and quantum physics, then this goes right back to the answers that Keel was seeking so many years ago, right?
Yeah, and Keel was phrasing it in one way, whereas I'm sure there were people prior to Keel that were sort of theorizing about the same sort of thing, but doing it in another terminology. And I think this is extremely ancient. I mean, it really, if you look at most mythology and religion, a lot of it, might boil down to dimensions. And that's not to write off religion or spirituality or any of that. Right. In fact, like I think it might just you're just all you're doing is rephrasing things generation to generation and sort of cataloging it in a new way. This generation, we're talking about interdimensional and quantum theory and all that kind of stuff, and maybe 100 years ago they had another term for it. and
ghosts.
Yeah, yeah,
Angels. Yes.
Right. We're just sort of reparsing everything every 100 years or whatever. I don't even know if it's that long. And I think Keel was aware of that as well. He references, obviously Hindu mythology and that kind of stuff. I mean, that was, one thing that we got to play around with in the Mothman Legacy was that idea of mythology and the Mothman, and how what you're dealing with here in Appalachia seems very similar to a lot of popular myths around the world. And what's interesting is some of those myths happen to exist in some of the cultures that settled Appalachia and West Virginia. So you've got, the Banshees coming over with the Scotch Irish, and the Banshee is obviously a red-eyed creature, typically, seen as a woman, sometimes a black hooded figure on a horse that screams and heralds an oncoming tragedy, and that sounds weirdly similar to the Mothman. And so that's, one thing we got to play around with, I think, is that, and it's sort of hinted at even in the tagline of the movie itself, is that there's something ancient to all of this. It isn't necessarily a new, the Mothman isn't necessarily a new phenomenon. This is something that probably has existed for a very long period of time.
Now, one of the things, especially for somebody like me and for others that are going to watch this film, I'm cruising along, I'm enjoying it, and all of a sudden I hear, and Men in Black arrived, right? And I snap to attention. Okay, now here we go. You've mentioned the Men in Black now a few times tonight, and I let it get by us because I knew we would come back to it and address it directly. Now, obviously, Men in Black and ufology go hand in hand. This is part of not only urban legend or the mythology of the UFO world, but to have the Men in Black arrive in Point Pleasant, now we need to start to connect the dots. When was the first Men in Black reference in Point Pleasant?
That I have no idea. Because since it's got to be around 65, I believe. It probably precedes the Mothman and UFO stuff, but it's been, we delved into the Men in Black stuff in 2017, but we really sort of avoided it with the Mothman Legacy simply because we really wanted to focus on the Mothman sightings. So I believe there were sightings of or encounters with Men in Black prior to the actual Mothman, sort of stepping on the scene in 1966, but I'm not sure on an exact date or anything like that, or what the encounter would have been. I can tell you just from being in Point Pleasant, Men in Black encounters are more common. You can have run-ins with people who know someone who saw a Man in Black or had an encounter with a Man in Black easier than any of the other phenomena that are associated with Point Pleasant.
Yeah, well, the obvious question is why, but the other part of this is we're talking about a small town. So anybody coming in, aside from during the festival, but if you're going to arrive in town, the people from Point Pleasant know that you're not from there. I mean, it's obvious. Everybody knows everybody. Mm-hmm. If Men in Black arrive in town, that's going to get noticed. It has to, right? I mean, it's just too small.
Yeah, and the other thing is that a lot of those encounters came following a sighting of a UFO. So someone would have a sighting of a UFO. They might not even tell anyone about it, and all of a sudden there's someone at their door, a Man in Black, asking strange questions about their encounter. And these Men in Black encounters weren't necessarily, you think Men in Black and you think dudes in suits, right? Like a couple dudes in black suits, but that wasn't always the case. I mean, they weren't always in black suits, and they definitely didn't always seem to be typical human being men. I mean, there's some really strange descriptions of some of the Men in Black that were encountered in that '66 and '67 time period.
Yeah, like what?
Just like like speaking in halted tones, like they didn't know how to speak English properly. One of my favorite stories involves a man in black who sat down at a dinner table with a family and kept asking for water. Acted like he had never seen a pen before. Like most things that we take for granted, he found extremely foreign. And there were a lot of encounters with these men in black where it almost seemed like they were robotic or like artificial intelligence. More so than like a human being, a government agent, which I think is what we typically think of when we think Man in Black.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to write with this pen now. So I understand that confusion. And taking us through to today, and I suggest that everybody watch the film. It covers a lot of history. But today, Mothman is not just a Point Pleasant or a Virginia thing. The sightings are across the country. Are they around the world?
And I think there's creatures seen around the world that people connect to the Mothman. I do tend to think that the Mothman, as we know it, does seem to stick to Appalachia. That classic description of the Mothman seems to be sort of relegated to West Virginia, New York, a little bit of New York, a little bit of Pennsylvania. You might get some sightings even down into like North Carolina. But, what we know as the Mothman, the classic character of the Mothman, I think that's seen around West Virginia. And those sightings still happen today, which is how we come up with eight eyewitness interviews, from the Mothman Legacy, and are able to talk to people about those encounters.
Have you been contacted with witnesses that have had video or taken any pictures?
We've definitely been contacted. Unfortunately, I would say most of the stuff we're contacted with is the same hoaxed photos that hit the news media.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like those people. The people that contact us with that kind of stuff, they're typically trying to gain some sort of attention.
What have you made with some of the vintage photographs that have been out there of Thunderbirds and certainly Mothman-sized birds and pterodactyls and what have you?
Yeah, we made a movie last year called Terror in the Skies, and that's what the focus of that was man-sized birds and larger around the state of Illinois. And we actually had some of the original footage shot by a guy who called himself Texas John Huffer. And Texas John shot this, what is sort of considered to be the probably the most famous, sort of the Patterson-Gimlin of Thunderbird footage.
Right.
And he shot it, and we actually own the camera and the original film negatives for that now. But none of it's persuasive, just to be frank about it. It's if it was, we would know 100% these things are real, right? So until you see something for yourself, or you can pull a body out of a river or whatever, I don't know that we'll ever know that these things are real. There's a lot of interesting photos and video out there, but none of it is going to, especially scientists, it's not going to do enough to persuade like a scientist to look into this.
Yeah, I'm from Illinois and Indiana, and there was so much talk growing up. I'm talking about the mid-'70s about Thunderbirds. Yeah. And I had a couple of relatives and a couple of other friends that were into bird watching. Mm-hmm. And that was the talk. We're going to go out and look for Thunderbirds.
Yeah.
And that part, especially back then, I believe that this was something that was accepted. There was a lot of talk about Thunderbird sightings, and I remember all of this growing up, and I never heard about it outside of the Illinois, Indiana areas and those sightings. But I have seen, I never saw anything, but I've seen some pretty convincing pictures, but never a body A lot like Sasquatch.
Right. I do. This is one of those topics. I 100% believe that something like a Thunderbird could exist because, we have abnormalities in all sorts of species. You get abnormally large creatures in any number of species around the world, and so why not birds? Now, when you get into the weird sort of Andean condor sightings that took place in Illinois in the 70s, mid 70s.
That's right.
That gets real strange because those sightings aren't, it's not one or two people reporting that. When you get into those, and it was always two birds. Those were seen around Illinois for at least a couple summers, and it was multiple sightings. Many witnesses claimed to have seen those Andean condor looking creatures flying across the sky, and in one case picking a kid up.
Yes. I remember all of that. Mm-hmm. And reports of 10, 15-foot wingspans, and it was on the news. This was something that was part of me growing up in that area.
Yeah,
it's fascinating.
Check out Terror in the Skies because that.
Oh, I've seen
entirely
it.
About.
Okay, I've seen everything that you have put out. And when we come back, I want to dive into that for some of the other stuff that you've worked on. Going back to the Mothman Legacy, is when you suggest somebody to look at a certain section of this film, what is it that you would say?
In terms of encounter stories, I mean, there's so many unique ones, but Les Odell stands out. It's one of the last, if not, I think it is the last sighting story in the entire film, and it revolves around a man seeing the Mothman in his bedroom. While not in his bedroom, he's while sleeping in his father's house prior to his father's death. It's just such a standout moment in the film, emotionally, and then also just so weird. It's such a strange story and flies in the face of what we think we know about the Mothman. You think of the Mothman and you think of a creature that chases cars on back roads at night. But this is actually the second Mothman story in two Mothman films. The Mothman in Point Pleasant also had a story similar to this, where someone encounters the Mothman, while they're sleeping or after they've been awoke. So there's something going on there that is very strange and unnerving. In the Mothman in Point Pleasant, we interviewed a guy named Lawrence Gray, who woke up in the middle of the night and found what he felt was the Mothman standing in his bedroom, and that's very similar to the story, to this interview we conducted with Les in the Mothman Legacy, where he wakes up late at night. There's a creature at the end of his bed, sort of hovering, near his bed. Now, what's interesting about Les's encounter is it's with a short. It's not a very large creature. He thought like 4 or 5 feet tall. But there are definitely similarities between what he encountered and the Mothman. And I mean, that opens up a whole other door of a path of conversation, really, if you want to go down that, where you can talk about how all the varied descriptions of the Mothman, what people are seeing, it doesn't all align. In fact, I would say most of the sightings of the Mothman don't align. There's usually some physical characteristic that someone describes that you've never heard before, or there's some aspects. It's almost like there's an amalgamation of different creature encounters happening in each witness description. But you're dealing with a typically what people say is like a 6 foot tall grayish skinned creature with red eyes. But what Les saw in his bedroom isn't that at all. And what Lawrence Gray saw in his bedroom seemed to be a man, almost like an angel or a demon with wings.
That's where I was going with all of this. There is certainly with imagery, there is a demonic demon, almost gargoyle aspect to this, which would lean towards a religious side. I've only got 45 seconds before the break. Is this something that a lot of these witnesses were church going, and this could be the power of suggestion with some of the things that they were describing?
Well, I don't know about Les, but Lawrence Gray was a pastor, and he had actually been a missionary. So for sure, that was a connection that he made that was based on his biblical knowledge. And he wrote a book, or his wife wrote a book, about his encounter along with some other things. And it definitely drew parallels between what he encountered and his, the biblical description, I guess, of a demon.
Let's take our break right here. Our guest tonight, Seth Breedlove, talking about his new film, The Mothman Legacy. When we come back, I want to go through some of the films and research that Small Town Monsters has done over the years. We'll do that right after this short break. Stay with us.
Hi everybody, this is Rob Halford, the Metal Guard on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station. Salt Lake City, Utah. Van Buren, Arkansas.
Why is it we're not very good with our health regimen until it's too late? We don't put oil in the car until the engine blows up. When the body's out of balance, your health is not so good. Give your body some love. Log on to GetTheT.com. That's GetTheT.com. Try our Life Change Tea, which cleanses you from harmful intruders. A clean colon is one of the ways to bring the body in balance. We also carry organic supplements to help you get where you need to go. So do your body a favor. Log on to GetTheT.com. That's GetTheT.com. You can even visit our sales page to save some dough. Does anybody call money dough anymore? Anyway, if you're looking for short, helpful health tips, go to YouTube and punch in Health Matters Now. That's Health Matters Now. So, log on to GetTheT.com, shop, get balanced, then learn some cool tips at Health Matters Now. You'll be glad you did. That's GetTheT.com.
Your contact for current news and trending topics. KGRARadio.com.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and I only drink Fade to Black blend coffee from River Moon. Just click on the River Moon Coffee banner at jimmychurchradio.com. Promo code F2B Blend. Let's face it, you've always wanted to do a sky watch and see your first UFO. Today, it's easy. Just get your own HP7 3B Cobalt Jimmy Church Edition night vision goggles from Hoffman's Optics. This is the same U.S. military system that I use, featuring a Generation 3 blue phosphor image tube. That's right, it's blue, not black and green. This is the only blue system in the world, and it's waterproof, lightweight, combat-proven, simple to use, and ready to go. Hoffman's Optics helped create night vision sky watches, and now you can see what everyone has been talking about each night from your own backyard. Just call 760-231-9929. That's 760-231-9929. You can click on the banners on our site or visit UFONightVisionGoggles.com. That's UFONightVisionGoggles.com. Go back, Lee Tappy.
This is the only way forward.
This is Fade to Black. Make contact. KGRARadio.com.
Listen, I know, and you know, that you've always wanted your first crystal skull. Or maybe you're a collector just like me, but you just don't know where to go to find the real thing. Then I met Carolyn Ford over at EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com. Carolyn is the guardian of Einstein, one of the most respected ancient crystal skulls in the world. All of her unique skulls have been imprinted sitting with Einstein in his sacred lodge and are carved from the finest gemstone and materials. Imprinting is the process of receiving the ancient wisdom from the master skull or master computer. Einstein, the ancient crystal skull. To see Carolyn's current collection of crystal skulls, just visit her store at EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com or click on the banner over on our site. Don't forget to use the promo code Jimmy at checkout to receive 10% off of your order today. That's promo code Jimmy. Finding your first or next crystal skull is easy. Just visit EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com.
Telepath is a weekly digital newsletter filled with the latest paranormal news, trending topics, and fresh articles from some of the most popular critical thinkers in the community today. Stay informed on your favorite paranormal podcasts and live streaming talk shows. Interact with the Telepath and upload your paranormal story or pics. It could be featured in an upcoming edition. Sign up right now for the free Telepath newsletter at paranormal.radio. That's paranormal.radio.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why fade to black? Because you never got that pony, damn it.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Seth Breedlove is here. We're talking about, well, most of the night, we're talking about his new film, The Mothman Legacy. It is premiering October 20th, and you can pre-order the DVDs and Blu-ray and physical media over at smalltownmonsters.com, and it will be on most streaming services on October 20th, and it will keep you updated here, but certainly Small Town Monsters is where to get all of your information. But this is, okay, Seth, let's go back if we can. Let's go to Boggy Creek. I remember seeing this for the first time. It's been a couple of years, but I remember going through my memory bank going, wait a minute. I saw this when I was, you mean this is real? Right? That was my thing. Mm-hmm. And your documentary here stirred so much for me in bringing up what I remember. And how was it for you? Were you familiar with Boggy Creek and what was going on there?
No. I was not. Like I said, I wasn't really into this stuff until later in life. So my introduction to the Falk Monster was really through making our Boggy Creek Monster movie. And honestly, I had read Lyle Blackburn's Beast of Boggy Creek book before I ever saw The Legend of Boggy Creek. So I came at it from a different angle, which I think is good because we had Lyle, very involved in the making of this movie. I mean, he was helping me write it, he narrated it, and he appeared on camera. So it's sort of his story, and we're seeing the whole thing unfold through his eyes. And so from that perspective, you've got this guy who grew up sort of obsessed with that film and all that kind of stuff. And so from behind the scenes, I was making a movie about a subject I knew very little about outside of Lyle's research. And what I obviously during the making of the movie, I finally sat down and watched The Legend of Boggy Creek. I actually really enjoyed it. I've since become a pretty big fan of the movie to the extent that when we made our Momo, the Missouri Monster movie last year, I mean, there's a lot of little Legend of Boggy Creek homages, throughout that film. But yeah, the Boggy Creek Monster story too, it's one that just keeps going. Like I don't see an end in sight for I guess, interest in the Falk Monster, and sightings still continue to this day. And it's like a lot of these monster stories, where there's an initial flap, and that's what gains the creature notoriety. And then that the media attention kind of goes away, and people think, well, those sightings must have stopped. And then you find out later, oh, those sightings never stopped. Like if anything, they might escalate or there might be a larger preponderance of reports than there would have been initially. It seems to be that way with a lot of these creatures. Flatwoods is like an outlier because they're, it happened one night and that's kind of the end of it. But the Falk Monster, it's on the other end of the spectrum from something like Flatwoods. It's still seen today. You could write any number of books about it, and I think Lyle plans to. And you could do any number of film projects about the Fouke monster and delve into that topic and never run out of material.
There was, I saw The Legend of Boggy Creek at a drive-in with like 1974 or something like that, with like The Last House on the Left, right? Okay, so we're there, horror night, Friday night at the drive-in. But I remember kind of laughing, like it seemed like almost like a mockumentary. That was my takeaway of the film. And like I said, when I get to your documentary on the Fouke monster, that made me go back, like I said, stirred all those memories. Oh, yes, because there was all of this urban legend behind it in the 70s because of the movie, The Legend of Boggy Creek, which now is a cult film, and it's a really big deal. But did the monster, in your opinion, the Fouke monster, did it exist?
In my opinion, that's to ask me if Bigfoot exists, and I'm still not 100%. But I would say, if Bigfoot exists, the Fouke monster exists for sure.
Right.
Because there's too many sightings. The sightings go back too far. I would say, of all the small town monsters that we've looked into, the sheer volume of reports of the Fouke monster would lead me to believe it exists, because you've got sightings going all the way back to the very early 1900s. And what's crazy is in I've been to Fouke now 4 or 5 times. And that's saying something, considering that's kind of in the middle of nowhere, and I live in Ohio, and it's 13, 14-hour drive. Sometimes when we're driving there and we get stuck in a tornado, it takes us about 21 hours. So I've been there a number of times, and I've sort of started to make some friendships there, and you learn things like any small town. Once you're friends with locals, you start to learn things that they might not tell other people. And so certainly in formulating those friendships, I've learned about a history of sightings there that goes back well before the regionally reported sightings of the Fouke monster. And a lot of these reports are just passed along from person to person, generation to generation. They're not necessarily reported to the BFRO or anything like that. They're just told from person to person. And they're fascinating. Like they involve sightings consistent across decades with creatures, not just one creature, but multiple creatures roaming the swamps down in southern Arkansas. Young ones, older ones, varying, sizes, attitudes, all that kind of stuff. There seems to be something living down there.
Yeah, and I didn't know until your documentary. I didn't know if it was made up for the movie. Right? And that's it. It's just a guy with a camera and a bunch of friends around town, and they made all of this up. But until your documentary about everything that preceded the making of the film in 1972 was all based on actual occurrences and sightings. It's a very, very good documentary.
Yeah, and what's interesting about that is you think 1972 because that's when The Legend of Boggy Creek came out. But the thing about that is those sightings, a lot of the sightings detailed in that movie, you're talking about 50s and 60s, not 70s. And that alone is eye-opening, because when we think Bigfoot, I think a lot of us think 70s. Maybe late 60s, maybe Patterson-Gimlin, but you don't think of reports of Bigfoot, Bigfoot-like creatures taking place in the 50s and 60s. But a lot of the reports detailed in The Legend of Boggy Creek are from that time period, and some even before that. And that's what I'm saying. There's sightings of bootleggers in the woods, in the 30s, having run-ins with something roaming around in the swamps down there.
Yeah, talk about small town monsters, man. Fouke, Arkansas. There you go. Right there. Now, the Minerva monster. Let's talk about that for a second. And Minerva, the Minerva monster is probably most of the audience has never heard of.
Yeah, Minerva was our first film. So we're talking 5 years ago before I really knew anything about filmmaking. But one thing I knew I was interested in was the Minerva monster. And it was a case that I had grown up being somewhat aware of even before I was really into Bigfoot. We lived about 20 minutes from Minerva. We ate dinner there all the time. You know, I lived in a small town right down the road from Minerva. But you didn't hear a lot about the Minerva monster, and certainly the older I got, the less you heard about it. So in 2013, I became really enamored with that Minerva monster story and started doing my own, I guess, research into it. I tracked down the initial police reports. Basically, for those that don't know, in 1978, August of 1978, a family in Minerva, Ohio, outside of Minerva, Ohio, which is a pretty small town in northeastern Ohio, had run-ins with a hairy creature that seemed to live on the hill behind their house. It would approach their house. There was an incident where the creature actually came up to the window of one of the windows of the home, and the mother of the home actually pointed a gun at it through the window, and it walked away. And they called the police, and the police came out to investigate, and they believed 100% that whatever the family was telling them must be true, at least in the family's eyes. You know, whether they were misidentifying something, the police couldn't say, but they believed that what they were saying was true. This kicked off a string of events during the summer of 1978 around Minerva, Ohio, where multiple people had run-ins with the same creature. We made a movie about it called Minerva Monster. It was the first film we made, like I said, and we actually managed to get Howie Caton, who was one of the original witnesses. He was just a boy at the time, but he was one of the original witnesses. We managed to get him on camera to detail the events. We tracked down he would have been a sheriff at the time, but the police chief who was investigating the case, James Shannon, who actually ran into.
He was great, by the way.
6 months ago.
He's great in the documentary. Great.
Yeah, I just bumped into him. He actually went to school with my dad, which is kind of weird. They grew up together. And
did they know each other?
So they did. Yeah, they didn't realize they knew each other until the premiere of the movie at the Canton Palace Theater, when they ran into each other and realized they'd gone to school. Now, last time we saw them together, they actually they 100%, you know, were just excited to see each other. So that's kind of a weird.
That's weird. That's cool. That's cool. All of this, by the way, the Minerva monster. This is modern history. That was like 1977, 78, right in there.
It's 78. Yeah, the summer of 78 is when it all kicked off. And that summer of 78 is important in Ohio Bigfoot history because there's a lot that took place that year. One of the other big sort of Ohio cases, one of the staples of Ohio Bigfoot lore, was a series of sightings that took place near Mansfield, Ohio, of something called Big Head. And this is a similar creature to Minerva Monster, but instead of being called something cool like Minerva Monster, they just called it Big Head. And it was a similar description to the Minerva Monster, but it had an abnormally large pumpkin-shaped head, which is actually, it's also what they said about Momo, was that it had a pumpkin-shaped head. So that summer of 78 was a really active year here in Ohio. And the Minerva Monster case became extremely popular, kicked off all sorts of national and international media attention, and reports sort of flooded in from around the Stark and Carroll counties of sightings of that creature.
Now, there's a couple of other things I want to talk about really quick before A, we run out of time, and B, I want to talk about on the trail of UFOs. But the Bray Road Beast and the Beast of everything's got monster or beast in the title, by the way.
Yeah.
For you, the Beast of Whitehall, and also the invasion on Chestnut Ridge. Let's stay with Bray Road and Whitehall. Let's talk about those two documentaries really quick.
Well, Whitehall is my baby, so that was the second movie I made, and it was the first thing I shot. And that details a sighting by 3 teenagers in 1976 near the village of Whitehall, New York. And I actually just got to go back to Whitehall to do some filming for a movie, another one of our movies coming out next year called On the Trail of Bigfoot, The Journey, which, this is a really fascinating case because in 1976, these 3 kids see this creature near a road called Abear Road. They flee the scene, head into Whitehall, and report it to the local police. Some of the police come out to Abear Road to investigate the scene of the sighting, and they proceed to have their own encounter with this creature. And what you end up with is 11 members of law enforcement having a sighting of a Bigfoot. And it's probably one of the better documented Bigfoot cases in Bigfoot lore. But it's certainly one of, if not the most important case in New York's Bigfoot history. And all the activity was centered around that Abear Road. And what we call the Abear Road incident was a series of events that took place over the course of about a week in 1976, where multiple encounters were reported with this beast, Bigfoot-like beast.
Again, it was something that I had never heard of before until Small Town Monsters. And also the Beast of Bray, Bray Road, the same thing there. Tell us about that really quick.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of our movies, that's one I'm really proud of. I think it's really polished and super creepy. And it was our chance to make a werewolf movie.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I guess that's kind of similar to Boggy Creek in that you've got these encounters with a creature that stretch back decades and still take place today. And in this case, instead of a Bigfoot-like creature, it's a dog man or a werewolf. And there's a lot of strange aspects to the Bray Road story, from possible occult connections to the idea that maybe there's some sort of undiscovered species of wolf or something roaming around Wisconsin that people are encountering. It's one of my favorite films we've made. I think it's a really creepy. It's like the perfect viewing for Halloween, especially.
Yeah, it's a great documentary, man. And cool. I just encourage everybody to go and visit smalltownmonsters.com where you can check all of this out really quick before we get to UFOs. Invasion on Chestnut Ridge, I've watched like 5 times.
Yeah, it's funny. Invasion on Chestnut Ridge is the cult classic STM film. It bombed when it came out in 2017. And then it's the movie that I hear the most about from people, including in 2017, I got a phone call from Adam Wingard, who's the director of the upcoming Kong versus Godzilla movie, and we've since become pretty good friends. And he became a Small Town Monsters fan because of that film. And I've heard that kind of across the country. People just they respond to that Bigfoot, UFO, Thunderbird, weird creature, paranormal phenomena, cross-pollination that happens with that film.
I would get to the end and start it over. Yeah, cool. Yeah. It's, again, everybody check that out. Let's get to, we've left so much on the table and we didn't talk about Champ, and I wanted to get to that so bad. But on the trail of UFOs, it's our favorite subject on this show. Here we go. All right. Now, first off, with all of the talk that is going on right now in the media, especially over the last 3 years, right? New York Times, the Nimitz, the Roosevelt, Tic Tac, the Senate, Trump is talking UFOs. You've got Tucker Carlson every single night on Fox talking about UFOs. And UFOs have arrived. But here we are on the trail of UFOs. Have you, how do I say this? Do you believe that we are being visited from something not of this earth, interstellar?
Do I believe? I don't know yet, because I haven't haven't seen enough for myself to know one way or the other, and that's kind of the impetus for the series. The series is as much about us trying to actually have some sort of experience as it is about, going out and documenting the history. It's On the Trail of is all about, it's all in the title. On the Trail of is about actually going out and trying to have an encounter. Our films are very much about documenting these stories and telling cinematic, creepy monster legends. On the Trail of is much more about, let's go put ourselves in the path of something and potentially having an encounter for ourselves while also doing some of that, documentary work that we're known for. So we haven't announced this anywhere either, but we're going to be filming On the Trail of UFOs season 2 starting in November, and that'll be split into 2 films called The Dark Sky and Night Visitors. So there's I don't know is the really frank
I can take
answer
you
I can give you.
I can take you out. I've got all the gear. I can take you out to a couple of specific locations, and I guarantee you'll see your first UFO. Something that will change your life.
Yeah. I'm in.
No, I'm being serious.
Yeah. No, I mean, like if that's a possibility, we should try to get that together, because it's what we're doing is attempting to actually get to the bottom of some of this stuff for ourselves.
I've been in the position, Seth, with dozens up to hundreds of people around me. When I say multiple witnesses, I'm talking about a large group of people where things have gone down that you absolutely cannot explain. Absolutely cannot. I've got 200 people with me, Seth, and this giant green chrome ball, surface ground level. It's a mile away, skimming across the desert. Just, I don't know, a few hundred feet off the ground. It's big. It's about a mile away. We're all looking at it. We're hooping and hollering. Skims across the desert from our left to right, kind of moving away from us, and then turns up and then continues. Now, imagine going across the desert, right? Vertical or horizontal, and then just turns up. And it took about 5 minutes, and it just, like a rocket, went up and turned into a star. Right in front of it. It's just like the craziest thing you have ever seen. And it made no sense. And you see something like that, especially for the first time for me, seeing something like that, and you just walk away going, you know what, there's some things that are just not explained on this planet.
Yeah, one thing I want to mention before we start to wrap up or whatever, but what you just told us, that your story is what we're in danger of losing. When we're talking about all this government hoopla and media circus that surrounds UFOs, what we risk losing sight of are the actual witness stories. And people get their sights set on all this disclosure stuff and all that kind of stuff, and they lose track of the important thing, which is the people and the stories that they have to tell about this kind of stuff. So, like that's on the Trail of UFOs that's a big part of what that's about. Is capturing these eyewitness stories.
You're spot on the money, and look. Navy pilots and their eyewitness testimony, what they've seen and whatever, and that's important. There's there's no questioning that, but we cannot get away from the millions of witnesses that are just as credible as any Navy pilot, like myself and others, and those 100 or 200 people that were around me that day on the edge of the cliff watching this thing. What they witnessed is important. And I will not stop speaking about it. It was incredible. It was just a wonderful night. Seth, what a great conversation, man. I'm excited for you. October 20th, you're about to go from one thing with small town monsters to a whole nother situation, man, and congratulations.
Yeah, thanks for having me and for watching our stuff. I mean, that's the biggest support we can get is someone telling us they love what we do. So
I've seen it all. Thank you so much, Seth. And my
Thanks,
best to everybody. Stay safe for the rest of 2020. And I look forward to our next conversation here on Fade to Black.
Thanks for having me.
All the best. Thank you so much, Seth Breedlove. And it is very simple, smalltownmonsters.com. The links are over at jimmychurchradio.com. Go and click all of the productions. The availability is there, and you can also pre-order the Mothman Legacy. All right, I'm going to take a quick break. I'll come back to your phone calls. Stay with me.
Here, and you are listening to my boy Jimmy Church on jimmychurchradio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and I take Life Change Tea supplements every single day. It's what I do. Click on their banner at jimmychurchradio.com. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Yes, Rivermoon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy.
Hello, my name is Billy Carson, and I am a best-selling author and the founder of ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. Together with my team, we have built an all-new conscious streaming TV platform designed with every family member in mind. If you have ever wanted to travel the world and attend lectures and workshops from your favorite speakers but weren't able to, look no further. ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. There are dozens of workshops and lectures from speakers you know and love. We have also included amazing categories to assure that your consciousness is entertained and elevating on a daily basis. Amazing interviews, ancient history, ascension knowledge, wisdom teachings, documentaries, conspiracies, mysteries, health and fitness, conscious cooking, meditations, finance, yoga, and so much more. To start your free trial on any mobile device or computer, surf to ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. That's Forbidden Knowledge with the number 4, ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. Again, visit ForbiddenKnowledge.tv today.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app. Free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Erica, Brittany, Gabby, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way. KGRARadio.com.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. You can follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. And wow, what a conversation, Seth Breedlove. I have been a fan of small town monsters since the beginning, and I remember, and it was probably on Netflix or Amazon, and clicking through. Maybe it was through an app back then, but nonetheless, I come across the series, and at that time, there was 3 or 4 documentaries out. Went through and watched them all and continued to follow Seth over the years. His stuff is just remarkable. And if you haven't watched, I would suggest for everybody, in my own weird way, but I did it tonight, start with Flatwoods. Start there. And then go back. The Minerva monster, that is a great documentary. That is just spot on. And it's a case that you probably have never heard of. I didn't until I saw the documentary. But the Beast of Whitehall, oh, man. And, of course, the Boggy Creek monster, which for me, I grew up with that. And I remember seeing the legend of Boggy Creek when I was a kid. I was little. I was probably 10 or 11 years old when I saw the original film. But yeah, go back, visit smalltownmonsters.com, and you can check everything out right there. We didn't get a chance to get to the Bell Witch. We did a lot of conversation tonight about Bigfoot, but very excited about the Bell Witch, the Mark of the Bell Witch, which is coming later on this year too as well. And of course, the Mothman Legacy, which premieres on October 20th. All right, I have opened up the phone lines, 747-228-2051, 747-228-2051. Open lines right now, and there you go. I have clicked. We are good. 747-228-2051. I remember, I wanted to go back. I started, I'm getting into my memory bank here. I remember, and it's kind of a weird story because back in 1973, 1974, I had 2 stepbrothers at that time. My dad was married at a very brief period to a woman, and she had 2 sons, David and Bobby. They were my stepbrothers for a couple of years, and then they got divorced. Okay, but anyway, David, I think the both of them, Dave and Bobby, got into bird watching. Now, in 1974 and 1975 in Indiana and Illinois, this whole giant bird thing and sightings was all over the place. It was crazy. And we went out a couple of times, and I think David came back and said that he had seen a Thunderbird, right? And tells us this story. And he's got his binoculars and things. And tells us the story. Takes us out into this cornfield next to our house. And we walked way out to where this clump of trees was. And he said, there it is. And I remember looking up and seeing a pretty big bird. But it wasn't what I thought. And I remember him trying to convince Bobby and I that was like a 10-foot wingspan. And we were looking, now this is what I remember in the story, but this was part of what was going on in Indiana and Illinois back then. These sightings were all over the place. They were on the news. And I remember this bird being white with black or gray tips on the feathers, and the wingspan was out, but it wasn't a Thunderbird. But it just kind of stuck with me, and I looked at it in the binoculars, and it was circling up. It was by itself. I have no idea about the size. I have no idea. But it wasn't like what was reported in the news. There was a story that was circulating back then. Seth brought this up, that one of these giant birds had picked up a boy. I remember the whole story. I think it was like rumor central with this, and people were talking about it. what I was looking at wasn't picking anything up, and no, I don't think I saw a Thunderbird. But I was taken out by my brother into the cornfields to go and see what he had come home with this sensational story. All right, 747-228-2051. And again, man, let me, I am going to, I'm going to restart. I don't like the way this is looking right now. You don't mind. There you go. Now, on the trail of UFOs, I think that's a pretty good way to go, where these days, okay, hold on a minute. No, I think I just messed up. I got to do this in real time. Hello, everybody. Okay. Let's see. Ha! Cool. Oh, no. Okay. I'm trying. Oh, jeez. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Rita, I blew it. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Oh. Whoo! For a minute there, I thought I forgot my password. Okay, I rebooted. Okay. All right. Oh, no. Hey, Ree. Oh, no. I think I just signed out. Oh, man. I am going to have to, I'm going to have to take a commercial break and come back. I think I blew it. Yeah. I'm going to take a commercial break. I blew it. I shut down the phone system. I'm going to take a break. I'll be right back. This is Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. I apologize for that, but I got to take a break. I'll fix it, and I'll be right back with your phone calls. Stay right there.
on jimmychurchradio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and I take Life Change Tea supplements every single day. It's what I do. Click on their banner at jimmychurchradio.com. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Yes, River Moon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy.
Hello, my name is Billy Carson, and I am a best-selling author and the founder of ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. Together with my team, we have built an all-new conscious streaming TV platform designed with every family member in mind. If you have ever wanted to travel the world and attend lectures and workshops from your favorite speakers but weren't able to, look no further. ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. There are dozens of workshops and lectures from speakers you know and love. We have also included amazing categories to assure that your consciousness is entertained and elevating on a daily basis. Amazing interviews, ancient history, ascension knowledge, wisdom teachings, documentaries, conspiracies, mysteries, health and fitness, conscious cooking, meditations, finance, yoga, and so much more. To start your free trial on any mobile device or computer, surf to ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. That's Forbidden Knowledge with the number 4, ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. Again, visit ForbiddenKnowledge.tv today.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app. Free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Erica, Brittany, Gabby, and you're listening to JamieChurchRadio.com.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way. KGRARadio.com.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I don't know if I have phones, people. I'm trying. I am trying right now, trying to make this happen. And I've reset everything. It's still loading in. And this is a phone bank. And that is the issue. And I made the mistake of resetting it. So there you go. And this is live on the air. This is something that is just always there. And for some reason, this particular time, it decided to reset a password. So there you go. And I'm just sitting here. It says loading. I am loading. Unbelievable, man. I cannot believe I did this. Okay. Okay. Well, no. I want to take some phone calls. Can't do it. Can't do it. Can't do it. Come on. Come on. Come on. I see if I got lucky. Let's see if this happens. Let's see if this happens. Okay. All right. No. Stuff like this happens from time to time. I'll have to get back and work on this tomorrow. Oh, man. That's a drag. One of the, let's just get back to it. If you got any questions, you can post it right up there on Twitter. I appreciate all of the humor that's going around, and you guys are enjoying me, watching me go through this. No, I'm not giving that out on the air. What's my cell phone number? Please. Please. And this is the other thing. I had remember the other night I was telling you about the SSD drive and the RAM and things that I did with the new computer, right? So all that's fantastic and it's running great and it's beautiful. One of the things that I didn't install, which I always had a backup, was our phone system and screening system on the second computer. I always had it and they were running simultaneously and I could juggle, and I didn't do it on the new computer. I didn't do it, and normally it would be here. Rita just came running in. I said, I didn't install it over here. So here I go. All right. Super quick, spontaneous Twitter AMA. Yeah, absolutely. I'll take questions on Twitter. Let's go. Right now. Questions on Twitter. Super quick AMA on Twitter. Yeah, let's do that. And we'll wrap up the show. But I can't believe it. I can't believe it. This is an issue I've never had live on the air. Okay, yeah, super spontaneous. I second the idea you play guitar live right now until the show ends. That's funny. That's funny. But you know what I did get? I don't have the flame guitar isn't in here right now, but I just got a new angle guitar cable for the flame guitar. And that's sitting right here. Maybe next time. Duck unrelated histrionics. Duh for short. Oh, that's funny. Anyone said that it's the equinox today? Is it the equinox? Is that today? The 22nd? No. Was that today? What a weird day. It was a fun day, by the way. What a weird day. This is pretty interesting too for the 1300th show. And I went through a rambling dialogue about being professional and what it takes to put on a show like this. And I blow the phone system and it shuts down. It's happened on other shows too, with me too as well. It seems that what is my favorite gemstone? When will you be able to take Skype calls? All of that. That's kind of a funny question. Skype back in the day, Skype had a different interface, and I would always have the backup to the old version of Skype for the install, because now check this out. Microsoft blew it. The old version of Skype, you had this fully customizable interface, and you could do a couple of things which for broadcast were key, and you could turn off ringtones. Turn it off. No ringtones. You wouldn't hear Skype ring. You would see it light up, but you would have no ringtones. So what that would enable you to do for broadcast is, because I'm running 2 or 3 channels or 4 channels, faders of phone calls, okay? You don't want to have people on hold and then in their phone listening to calls ring and come in. You don't want that. In fact, you want total silence. And if I'm talking to somebody live on the air, you don't want to have them, and it could be an interview, it could be a guest, or it could be another caller talking to me, and then they hear in the talkback Skype calls. You don't want that. So if you can turn off call ringing, they won't hear it ring. I could see it ring, and then I could just put the call on hold. And that caller, when they're on hold, they're listening to the show in their headphones or on their phone, which is what you want. One day, Skype did an update, and it was automatic, and it was this new interface. And I'm looking, and I'm thinking, man, that's funky. So you go into settings, and all of those total customizable situations were gone. So I was able to go back, install the old version of Skype, get rid of what was just installed, and I did this. And I did this for about a year. In that, Microsoft would update your version of Skype automatically. When they did it, I would uninstall it, install the older version of it, and that would run for like 2 or 3 weeks until like Microsoft catches you. And they would install, and anybody that went through Skype back then, this is like 2-3 years ago, knows exactly what I'm talking about. And you were stuck with the new version of Skype. About a year and a half ago, Microsoft nipped all that in the bud. You couldn't install the old version of Skype into Microsoft Windows. It wouldn't accept it. Couldn't do it. you were stuck with the new version of Skype, which I still have, but I don't use it. And I don't use it because it rings. Right? So I've got all of that shut off. I have another JimmyChurchRadio.com Skype account that doesn't have any phone numbers tied to it, and it won't ring, and that's what I use. The other versions of Skype, I don't even turn them on. I'll use them for outgoing calls only. This is it was miserable. Then we got the new phone system installed, and we've been happy with that ever since. It's great, except for like a moment like this when suddenly it goes for a password reset, and now I'm logged in, and it is saying to me that I'm not logged in, even though I am. So that's a little bit funky. I don't have a phone screen. I don't have all of the the lines in front of me where people call in and I can answer it, screen it, and do all of that stuff. Can't do it. Okay, let's see. Yeah, the whole Skype situation was frustrating nightmare. Still is, too, as well. They make a new version. There's a Skype broadcast version. I think it's called LTXT, and but it runs with hardware. And that's something else that we are currently investigating. But there you go. This is from Kim. Name 3 shows that stand out in your mind from the past 3 years. Answer quickly without too much thinking. The 3 Fade to Black shows that stand out over the last 3 years. Robert Schock 3 years ago. When we talked about him visiting the King's Chamber and sleeping in the sarcophagus. That show always comes back. Let's see, in the last 3 years. Ooh, wow, man, so many great shows. The Linda Moulton Howe Thanksgiving show from 3 years ago. That was pretty intense. That was pretty strong. Let's see. From the last 3 years, so many great shows. That first Chris Blood show was strong. Oh, Calvin Parker. There you go. That was a strong show. Any Richard Dolan show has been good. But that Calvin Parker show, yeah, that was pretty amazing. And we did a Travis Walton show 2 or 3 years ago where we talked about anything except the abduction in Snowflake. That show was pretty incredible too as well. Okay. What is your favorite combo guitar amp to record with? Combo? There's only one. Fender Twin. If you're going combo. Yeah, Fender Twin. Blackface is the way to go. Everything on 10. Let's see. Oh, Doty. Karen McIntyre says Doty, the call-in show. That was pretty good. Is that Arrested Development, Corey? Is that the mom? What's her name? Starts with an L. You have an iPhone, Jimmy. Do you have a Mac? I use FaceTime. Yeah, I don't use FaceTime. But of course I have an iPhone. It's right here. Got 2 of them, actually. Have you seen the 2nd season of Hellier on Amazon? And do you plan on having them on again? That is funny you say that. They will be on with us, the Newkirks, Halloween week. So stay tuned for that. Yeah, the 2nd season of Hellier is excellent. I've covered that many times on the show. Kim just said that Calvin Parker is the only one that I've missed. You've got to go back and check that out. That Calvin Parker is the man. That was a really good show. All right, let's see what else. What? How? Why? I don't get that. Let's see. One last quick question. What is your favorite gemstone? Oh, that was a question. I don't know if I have a favorite gemstone. No. I don't even know where to go with that. As far as crystals go, just plain clear quartz, to me, is still the most fascinating thing, which I have a lot of. I still have all the skulls here in the studio. Robert Schroeder, episode 33. Yeah, but that was 8 years ago. The question was in the last 3 years. All right, there you go. Fun way to end show number 1300 with a quick AMA from all of you. Thank you so much. Very, very great show tonight with Seth Breedlove. And again, Small Town Monsters. And the new film, The Mothman Legacy, comes out October 20th. All you got to do is go and visit smalltownmonsters.com. All right. Steve Gray just says, can you go over the details of your night vision binoculars? If you go to jimmychurchradio.com, Steve, click on the banner right there for Hoffman's Optics. Everything that you need will answer your questions. Call back Thursday night. We can talk about it. All right. What a great show. Perfect night here on Fade to Black. Fade to Black's executive producer is Rita Camurian. Show is produced by Hill J. Palm, Renee, Dennis, and Kevin. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vitoa, Mark D. Kovar. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy, spaceboymusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network, and syndication is KGRA, The Planet. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2020 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. It's Taco Tuesday. That's right. Until tomorrow night, be safe. Go Beckley Tepe.